The 1990s gave us some of the most intense and unforgettable stalker films, blending psychological tension with edge-of-your-seat suspense. From obsessive admirers to relentless pursuers, these movies kept audiences gripping their seats and questioning just how far obsession could really go. I'm Anthony DeJoya, and this is Movies Never Say Die, and in this video, we're diving into some of the great stalker thrillers of the decade, movies that made us double-check our locks and rethink who we could trust. So sit back and get ready for a deep dive into the chilling world of 90s stalker cinema. This stalker movie centers on a young woman who fakes her own death to escape her abusive husband and start a new life, but learns that distance sometimes can't outreach obsession in 1991's Sleeping with the Enemy, starring Julia Roberts and Patrick Bergin, from director Joseph Rubin. Thanks to Sleeping with the Enemy, we now know that a person having all of their canned goods perfectly lined up in the pantry is a massive red flag. Now, if you're watching this movie these days, it kind of does play like an express thriller. It's a tight 97 minutes, so the result is more than a few plot conveniences, a couple of far-fetched scenarios, and some character emotions that kind of lack some authenticity. And personally, I do think Bergin really just overplays this character immensely, and with the passing of time, his portrayal has grown a bit comical. However, still, Sleeping with the Enemy is an easily consumable stalker thriller with a very straightforward plot that can lure you in before you know it, primarily because of the fantastic performance from Julia Roberts, who really does give her all in this movie. You can easily root for her character. This movie made a killing at the box office, and despite its melodrama, it remains a satisfyingly taut thriller. This stalker thriller, a remake of the 1962 film of the same name by J. Lee Thompson, centers on a psychopathic fugitive released from prison after a 14-year sentence who immediately begins stalking the lawyer who defended him in 1991's Cape Fear, starring Robert De Niro and Nick Nolte, from director Martin Scorsese. Now, what I enjoy the most about this one really is just its amplified atmosphere. Everything in this movie is just cinematically grand and loaded with some spectacle, from the performances to Scorsese's stylistic direction to the intense scoring. It's all over the top in all the ways you would want. I think De Niro as Katie here is excellent. He's the boogeyman of legal loopholes, and after 14 years of reading law books and doing pull-ups and getting prison tats, he just begins his psychological warfare on this idyllic family. I think Nick Nolte, while not as strong as De Niro, really as Sam Bowden, he's good in this film, and I think watching him just being continuously out-finessed by the cunning De Niro is able to build some great tension as the intensity of their interactions escalate. I think Katie doesn't just stalk Bowden, he invades his personal space with like the precision of a horror villain and the persistence of a cockroach, and it's just a great ride of unnerving tension that just builds up perfectly to a cinematically enthusiastic closing act that still is a good time today. Now, this thriller centers on a couple who, after a home invasion, befriend the responding officer, but things quickly take a dark and deadly turn when this officer becomes infatuated with the wife. In 1992's Unlawful Entry, starring Ray Liotta, Kurt Russell, and Madeleine Stowe, from director Jonathan Kaplan. Now, this movie could be an example of why cops need to have Yelp reviews, because if so, pretty sure Russell and Stowe would have picked another officer for their home invasion call, but instead they get Ray Liotta, a cop who oozes psychotic charm. He has massive personal space issues, and this movie absolutely does thrive on his creepy insanity as his impact on this couple's life quickly escalates. Now, Unlawful Entry is admittedly predictable, but the foreboding tension that it weaves, I think, is super effective. Everything seems normal at first. Liotta's a little bit odd, but nothing out of the ordinary, but soon lines are crossed, and Liotta doesn't just cross lines, he rages through the line of right and wrong with a psychotic glee that I think only Ray Liotta could deliver. You could feel for Russell and Stowe as they are helpless to this demented cop, as you should, and the result is a movie that you could just easily sit back and have fun with. This stalker thriller delivers a bit of it all as a former Secret Service agent takes the job as a bodyguard for an A-list R&B singer being stalked by a mega fan in the 1992 mega hit and one of my guilty pleasure favorites, The Bodyguard, starring Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston from director Mick Jackson. The Bodyguard is easily one of my top guilty pleasure films of all time, and I'll be honest to say that I watch it at least once a year. It's ultra sappy, it's colossally melodramatic, and it's written like an elementary school love story, and I love every bit of it. This movie throws everything at you. It's an action movie, it's a thriller, it's a musical, it's a drama, with a love story at the core, and it's just got a splash of comedic charm as well. I mean, it's just really a textbook example of early 90s cinematic excess. This movie kind of plays like a theme park ride, and it's all carried by the undeniable chemistry between Costner and Houston. You want them to fall in love by the time the journey of this story is over. You will want Costner to be your bodyguard, and you're going to want Whitney Houston to just chisel off the rough edges of Costner to find his soft pudding cinder, and it's just purely because of their performance and just the cheesiness of this movie. This script navigates the cliched checklist between all the nostalgic musical numbers from Houston, but it was a massive hit back in the day, and it's still a great time today. Roommates can certainly be the death of you, as explored in this stalker thriller about a young woman who puts out an ad for a new roommate that will ultimately move in and want to become her. In 1992's Single White Female, starring Bridget Fonda and Jennifer Jason Leigh, directed by Barbette Schroeder. You know, we've all had a roommate that's borrowed some shirts or a couple shoes here and there, or maybe copied a style or two, and even used our deodorant when we weren't looking. But when a roommate begins to copy your haircut, your entire wardrobe, your entire personality, you could be possibly starring in your own horror movie, as evident in Single White Female, a sleek little stalker thriller that is easily carried by the performances from Fonda and Leigh. To me, I think casting here was crucial to make this movie work, and these two are perfect. Leigh is unassumingly terrifying, kind of towing the line between vulnerable and monstrous, while Fonda plays the perfect every woman caught in a waking nightmare. I remember watching this movie with my friends when I was a teen, and we all had a blast with it. The pace is swift, the spots of unnerving tension are effective, and when the final act kicks in, the movie just kind of explodes into psychological thriller territory that may work for some will like it won't work for others, but it's just also delivers that classic 90s era showdown between Fonda and Leigh that we were all accustomed to back in the day. And despite being a little bit over the top as it closes out, I think this movie still is a good time. This thriller centers on a journalist renting a guest house who becomes the target of the owner's 14-year-old daughter, who begins to stalk and sabotage his life after he refuses some of her advances in The Crush from 1993, starring Alicia Silverstone and Cary Elwes, written and directed by Alan Shapiro. This teenage fatal attraction starred Silverstone in her first headlining role as an obsessive, manipulative, and disturbingly self-aware 14-year-old with an unhealthy fixation on older men, this time being Nick, played by Cary Elwes, who is renting the guest house. And fortunately for all of us, Nick is a complete moron, so what starts as an innocent crush quickly devolves into infatuation, and really watching this young girl stalk, sabotage, and completely just dismantle this dude's life is a oddly satisfying ride of all the 90s thriller tropes. I mean, nothing in this movie is unique, but that core element that drives the plot is something that could happen to anyone if you're as dumb as Nick, and that simple connection is what makes this movie a great time. You root for Nick, sort of, but there is no combating a girl who can flip between wide-eyed innocence and cold-blooded revenge in a heartbeat. The Crush is a pulpy, campy stalker thriller that taps into every adult's worst nightmare, being completely powerless in a script pitting you against a vengeful, dangerous, and intelligent teenager. Suspense meets comedy when a new resident makes the mistake of rejecting the friendship of the eccentric cable guy who set up his system, triggering a series of comical events that dismantle his life in 1996's The Cable Guy, starring Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick, directed by Ben Stiller. This movie has always been a favorite of mine. I love the dark themes, I love the sinister sense of humor, and most importantly, I love Jim Carrey as the lonely cable guy who really wants to be your friend, whether you like it or not. The Cable Guy is just basically a comedic cautionary tale about what happens when you don't set boundaries with that one overly attached acquaintance who just starts showing up uninvited and buying you prostitutes on your birthday. Now, the Cable Guy clearly aims for laughs, and the stalker tale at the core, I think, is just the perfect backbone for all the twisted comedy that comes from it, from medieval jousting matches to creepy karaoke parties to basketball played under prison rules. The Cable Guy is never short on laughs. I think Carrey and Broderick play perfectly off one another, and the result is a movie that people never really took to at the time. It didn't really do that great at the box office, but it's one that I think is aged like a fine wine and can still deliver a buffet of capable laughs. Now, this thriller explores the world of sports fanaticism when a salesman hits rock bottom and shifts his attention to a star baseball player and begins stalking him with increasingly deadly results in The Fan from 1996, starring Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro, directed by Tony Scott. Robert De Niro takes baseball fandom to terrifying new heights and proving that sometimes sports fans are just one bad season away from a full-blown meltdown. Wesley Snipes is just trying to play ball and make money, but De Niro's character is out here treating his favorite player like his personal action figure, and this movie can lure you in. It's just soaked with Tony Scott's signature directorial style. It explores the dark side of sports fandom, showing how admiration can quickly morph into something twisted, and it's just surprisingly compelling due to the performances. Snipes is great in this one for sure, but De Niro is the driving force. He's completely unhinged. He's chilling, he's very grounded, and delivers one of his most uncomfortably intense performances, in my opinion. This movie just spirals into the darkness with each passing minute, and by the time we reach the rainy, tension-soaked climax at the stadium, you'll be left wondering how this movie got so over the top, yet is still able to command your attention. I have another comedy for this list. This one centers on a womanizing nightclub promoter who gets his karma when he tries to play a wealthy businesswoman with psychopathic tendencies who becomes infatuated with him in A Thin Line Between Love and Hate from 1996, directed by and starring Martin Lawrence as well as Lynn Whitfield and Regina King. In this movie, Martin Lawrence says if God wanted to make all women happy, that he would have made all men like him. However, in A Thin Line Between Love and Hate, Lawrence is playing checkers and Lynn Whitfield is playing chess as she teaches him that juggling women can be as dangerous as juggling chainsaws. This movie is Fatal Attraction meets Martin's sitcom comedy, and sure, it has its cheesy spots and not all the laughs land, but it's still just a highly charming blend of just comedic suspense. What starts as a comedy quickly morphs into a full-blown comedic thriller, with Whitfield's transformation from elegant and sophisticated to terrifyingly vengeful just happening in the blink of an eye. Lawrence is effectively humorous as Whitfield goes from evasive to just popping up in his life in dangerous ways. This movie is just, I think, easy to sit back and have fun with as Whitfield exacts her calculated retribution on Martin in a silly, forgotten gem from the 90s. This stalker thriller follows a young girl who meets a handsome, slightly older guy who seemingly has all the charm, but she soon realizes he's a complete psychopath when he becomes obsessed with her in 1996's Fear, starring Reese Witherspoon and Marky Mark Wahlberg from director James Foley. In Fear, a teenage riff on Fatal Attraction, Marky Mark makes boyfriends everywhere look like saints by comparison. This movie is just a roller coaster ride of boyfriend red flags, with Wahlberg's David starting as the perfect dreamy bad boy before revealing his true colors, that being jealousy, rage issues, and having just a downright psychotic temperament. I remember this movie came out during my senior year, and we watched it a few times in the theater, and we really loved it. And sure, it's not as riveting now as it was back when we were teenagers, but it's still packed with a lot of nostalgia and just a lot of throwback music. This movie just goes through the motions, but it does them seamlessly and surprisingly effective. Witherspoon is more than convincing as the innocent girl who falls for the bad boy, and to his credit, Marky Mark delivers this movie just an effectively chilling performance that does sell the suspense. I think fear is able to escalate the tension nicely, and when the final act kicks in and Witherspoon's life has been completely turned upside down, the final showdown here is a familiar but rewarding one. And there you have it, guys. That wraps up this video. These are some of my picks for great stalker movies from the 1990s that are still packed with a lot of fun, tension, and obsession and unforgettable performances. And I think these movies still hold up great today. If there is a 90s stalker gem I missed, let me know down in the comments. I love hearing your guys' opinions on movies. As always, thank you guys so much for watching my video. I know there's been a little bit of a gap since my last video, but my day job has been pulling me from all sides, so my attempts to sit back and actually get a little bit creative have been few and far between the last few days or last couple weeks. So hopefully things will start to taper out and I can get some more consistent videos back for you guys. But, you know, I got to work during the day to pay the bills just like everybody else does. So I am always back here and I'm always working on content on the side to always keep the things moving forward and to keep new videos coming for you guys. I do have another one planned right around the corner talking about more of the just great B action movies from the 90s. I think it's going to be another fun video. I'm going to turn that into just a much longer series that I think is going to be a good time for everybody. Just a lot of movies that you may have seen the covers of in the video stores and maybe not ever rented or maybe saw once or just a piece of and never really got back to, but I think it's going to be fun reminiscing about a lot of these old 90s B action movies. So be on the lookout for that video coming real soon. As always, thank you guys so much for watching these videos. You guys make it all possible, and until the next one, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
To survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?